Daniel Brown, Business Insider. A U.S. Army self-propelled howitzer. Russia has the U.S. and NATO outgunned in Eastern Europe, but U.S. Army generals came up with a plan to counter it. Instead of risking planes over Russia's fierce air defenses, the U.S. will pivot to developing and deploying long-range artillery and missile systems to knock out defenses from afar. With the changes recommended, the generals said the U.S. would be able to fight Russia for weeks without even using air power. The U.S. military and NATO have been significantly outgunned by Russia in Eastern Europe for some time, but U.S. Army generals recently laid out a plan to close the gap. As it stands, Russia has more tanks, aircraft, better air defenses, and more long-range weapon systems than the U.S. and NATO have in Eastern Europe. The U.S. has known for some time that its air superiority, something the U.S. has held over enemies for 70 years, has come under serious threat, but now they're working on an answer. Because of the power and the range and the lethality of these Russian air defenses, it's going to make all forms of air support much more difficult, and the ground forces are going to feel the effects. Gen. Robert Brown, who commands the U.S. Army in the Pacific, recently said, according to Military.com. He said the answer was to push the maximum range of all systems under development for close, deep-in strategic strikes, and that the U.S. has got to outgun the enemy. Instead of risking U.S. planes and pilots in covering U.S. forces as they fight with Russia, the U.S. should pivot to increasing the range of its rockets, artillery, and missiles, according to Brown. Then, using those systems, the U.S. can knock out Russian defenses and keep its troops at bay, potentially fighting without air support for weeks, he said. Brown was speaking at the Association of the United States Army's Global Force Symposium in Huntsville, Alabama. Russia has got a range advantage over us in a number of different areas, particularly cannons, John Gordon IV, a senior policy researcher at Rand Corp, said at the event. Typically, modern Russian cannons have got 50% to 100% greater range than the current generation of U.S. cannons. Wikimedia Commons. The U.S. Army's Army Tactical Missile System. Brown also said the U.S. needs to extend the range of its current systems and those in development to meet the threat, specifically by bumping up the range of the Army Tactical Missile System to 499 kilometers, just under the 500-kilometer range limit the U.S. is bound to by an arms control agreement. Brig. Gen. Stephen Maranian, Commandant of the Army's Field Artillery School, said the new missiles would have the ability to hit a ship at sea, the ability to hit moving targets on the land domain, the ability to have submunitions that attack heavy armored targets and have effects, and the ability to use sensors to hone in on targets. Those are all aspects of future spirals of this missile that the Base Precision Strike Missile will provide, Military.com noted. Additionally, the U.S. is working on a new self-propelled howitzer that would increase the range out to 40 kilometers, and increase the rate of fire.